Stilianu, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own slab llama. And I'll just show you really quick. I actually created this for my colleagues that I work with. I just taught this in a workshop at FAEA, which is our Florida conference, and it was pretty well received. So I'll take you through the first steps. So what I've done is pre-rolled clay for my students with my slab roller at about 1/4 of an inch thick, although you can change any thickness that you like. What I've done is I pre-cut these little templates. And again, you have choice if you want to make them larger. Mine's on the smaller side, honestly. I'm gonna do this project with 3rd, 4th, and possibly 5th grade. So, younger students, younger elementary, or actually older elementary. So first things first, what I'm gonna do is hold down my llama with my non-dominant hand, and I'm gonna carve away with my dominant hand, and I'm a righty. You just do the best you can. Please don't worry about anything looking perfect. You're gonna have raggedy edges, and that's okay. When I taught this to my colleagues, they really had a hard time with the raggedy edges because adults tend to be perfectionists. Haha. So don't worry about that. I'll guide you through how to make everything nice and smooth, and don't worry, it will be smooth when we're all finished. Here we are. So we got that. Bye-bye, llama. And what I'm gonna do is carefully pull this away. Now, this is my slip. I'm gonna be using this in a moment. Slip is simply wet clay. We use it as the glue, of course. So I'm gonna put that to the side. And what I'm gonna do with the carved part is I'm gonna use my little needle tool here. And I'm gonna cut almost like little strips with what's left here. I'm gonna do the best I can. And I'll try to keep them like an even thickness. Don't worry if they break on you. So there's one. We're not looking for anything perfect. So ideas of perfectionism, just get rid of them. They're not going to help you in this project. So I got another. I just want to make quite a few of these and kind of have them ready. I'm just kind of carving that out of the way. And I'm going to need enough of this to cover around my llama. So I'm not exactly sure how many, to be honest. It's better to have more than what you need. Right, because once we get started, your hands are going to get dirty, and it's going to be hard for you to stop what you're doing and make more strips. So just, I would say you have more than what you need. All right, and I think this should be more than what I need. Right here, it almost looks like spaghetti. And what I'm going to do is just ball up the rest of my clay and put it to the side. I don't need it. In my classes, I collect the extra clay and I put it in, I call it my Santa bag. So I just put it in a little bag, and sometimes I'm able to reclaim it, and other times I turn it into slip. Either way, I do reclaim it. So what you might want to do here is actually flip your llama over, because the other side is probably the neater side. It doesn't matter which way your llama faces. Now, here's going to be the next part. This is the idea, is we're going to be putting these strips. I just want to show you, it's about 1/2 inch thick, right? Well, it's thin here, but 1/2 inch wide, I should say. And we're measuring it to our llama. But can I just put this here and expect it to stay? No, of course I can't. What I need to do is score and slip. So this is going to be the time-consuming part. And we're not worried about cleaning up any edges or anything right now. So smoothing will come later. Scoring is very important, so you'll see me scoring right now. I'll just bring this closer to the camera for you to see. So I just do it really quick. It doesn't have to look like anything perfect. I score both parts that are going to be touching each other. And to my students, I say peanut butter and jelly. Like it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Just to show you. And what I'm going to do, sometimes I give my students paintbrushes, or sometimes I'll give them like a popsicle stick. It doesn't matter what you use. You could use your fingers too. Of course, that's messy. Sometimes I let my students use their fingers in class though. So what you're going to do is paint it on kind of thick over the area that you scratched. And I'll tell you what scoring and slipping is about, but let me show you this first. I'm going to press this on. So we have a lot more scoring and slipping to do, of course. I have to really press it. I cannot expect this to stick if I forget to score and slip. Okay, so it's really pressed on there. I'll just kind of lift this to show you. I know it's a little hard to see on the camera, but what we're doing is we're turning it into almost like a pool, if that makes sense. Don't worry about the extra that's kind of spilling out over here. All right, I'm going to continue and I'll talk about the purpose and function of scoring and slipping. So we know slip is just wet clay and we use it as the glue. Okay, some people create slip by taking wet clay and they actually use a hand blender to make it really nice and smooth. What I do, I have a different system. There's so many systems that can work, but what I do is I take extra clay kind of like this and I throw it into a Ziploc bag with some water and I seal up the bag and I let it sit for about a week and then I squish it around with my hands, of course with the bag sealed, and voila, once it's all sat for a week, it turns into perfect slip without me having to use a hand blender. So it takes away a step for me. All right, so why do we have to score? Well, I tell it to my students like this. So my building here is made from cement cinder blocks, right? And cinder blocks are rough. So it's for the same reason that cinder blocks are rough. Okay, so they're rough because the concrete goes in between all of the little grooves in the rough areas, and that's what makes the building strong. Now, if cinder blocks were smooth, what would happen is maybe that building would stand for a while, but over time, cinder blocks would actually come out of place, and the building eventually would crumble. So cinder blocks are rough for a reason. So it might not be the prettiest thing, but it serves a very important function. And basically the glue gets stuck into these little grooves and it's going to make your piece as strong as can be. And that's the reason, and that's why we have to do it. So sometimes I'll have students that score one side of their thing and they forget to do the other. Well, it's just kind of like a roll of the dice. Like sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. But I like to have my students feel very prepared, and the best thing to do is to score both sides. Sometimes people ask me, well, can I put slip on both sides? It's your choice. If you didn't put it on really thick, you could put slip on the other side. You just gotta kind of feel out your project and see what really will work for you. So I'm going ahead and I'm just pressing this all in. And I know you guys are excited to see these get smoothed out. This is gonna curve around here. There we are. All right, I think I can get away with this smaller, maybe not, I don't know. But you know what, it doesn't matter, I'm gonna try anyway. And I'm gonna use this little piece here. Of course, I score. And sometimes I'll have students correct me, like adult students, and they'll say, oh, but it's slip and score, not score and slip. Well, I'll answer that too. It's just a matter of preference and how you say it. It's kind of a silly thing. But I learned score and slip. That's how I've always said it, so that's how I'll continue to say it. And then others have learned slip and score. So, you know, it's just a matter of preference with those words. All right, we're up to everybody's favorite part. You don't need a fancy sponge or anything for smoothing. I'm going to show you my really quick technique, what I'm going to do. Easy stuff, honestly. I have my water here. I have a paper towel. I'm going to dip it. I don't want it overly wet, just a little bit wet. Overly wet's going to make a mess. And what I'm going to do is take some time here. I'm going to smooth this whole thing out. And this is usually the part where I see people get a little frustrated. The only thing that makes this come together properly is time. Just really spending time smoothing each area. You're going to have little imperfections that happen as you're smoothing. You just have to kind of just remember to have patience. It's starting to look pretty good. So this part here needs to get seamed together. Water's going to do it. You can use your fingers to help you out. then I'll show you some more tips. You can actually just dip your finger in water and use your finger to help you to get things where you want them. I have a few more things I'm excited to teach you about today. So we're going to get into underglaze next. After I'm done smoothing, of course. And the best thing is if this all kind of comes to a similar level. Now, if it's not sticking now, don't worry about it. When it dries, it will stick. I know that this piece here is definitely a little floppy. That's okay. All right. Sometimes it's hard to kind of deal with your project in the funny in-between stage. Another thing you could do is use some more slip on any area that feels rough. Just throw some slip on there. And that will help to smooth things out and make it how you want it. I do say neatness counts. So for my classroom teachers that might be showing this video, this step alone, if you have 45 minutes with your students, then this will probably take up the whole time, just getting them to this, I think. If you have older students, you can add on more elements. So when I taught this to adults, I saw some of the adults building up faces with some of their extra clay scraps. So you could build up anything you want in your llama. Just remember that you need to score and slip everything to make it stick. Okay, so those are kind of like the important rules. It's really starting to look nice and smooth. It's getting there. I can see on the screen some areas. I can't see it from looking at it, but just looking up at the screen, I could see a few areas that still need a little touch up, and that's okay. All right, it's really getting there. So another tool that you have that will help you is your needle tool. I use these wooden skewers. I like them better for my young students. Less of a chance that they could get hurt. So, and even with older students, it might still be a good idea. And I'm just going to go over all this. So I also have some homeschool friends that watch my videos. So for homeschool friends, you can use air dry clay on this. Michael's actually sells a red Amico clay just like this. Now this is kiln fire clay, but the one they sell at Michael's is air dry clay. And that'll work perfectly for this. You can make a slip. And you could do this project the exact same way. I want to warn you that air dry clay just is never as sturdy as kiln fire clay, so you know it's just always going to be more breakable. Now if you're using air dry clay, you're not going to use glaze because that would be for if you're putting these in the kiln. So instead you would use just regular paint after it dries. So I would recommend throwing it outside for a bit so it dries. Maybe for, I would put it outside for on a sunny afternoon and then bring it inside, you know, in case of weather, and let it finish drying inside. Okay. And then maybe a week later, I would use acrylic paints to paint. All right, and then what I would do is seal it up with Mod Podge, which they sell at Michael's. It's a great way to seal it up. But again, it's always going to be a little bit fragile if it's not kiln fire clay. That is just the way it is. So just something to make you aware of. All right, and it's not perfect, but I am going to move on just for the sake of the video here. And I'm going to show you how to use underglaze. So underglaze is actually just like wet clay. It's just like slip, I mean to say. It's the same as slip, it just has color dyes in it. So I'll show you what I have in a second. I'm just cleaning my brush off. I'm gonna use the same brush I used for slip. So I just picked 4 colors here. Now the great thing about underglaze is that it really sticks. So what I'm gonna do is, I think I'm gonna paint, really this is glaze, but the action of putting on is painting. I'm gonna paint directly on here, and this has not been fired yet. Now of course you can do it where they build and then you fire at this step and then you use regular glaze. I think underglaze is great because you can get a few more fun details maybe that you couldn't get with regular glaze. Regular glaze tends to spread, underglaze stays in place. So that's one of the beauties of using it. And what I'm going to do actually is paint this whole thing. I was just looking at my little example to see what I had done in the past. Okay, so I think I'll use my biggest brush. I always tell my students, if you're using a tiny brush on a big area, it's kind of like painting a house with a toothpick. So silly, right? If you're painting a house, you want to use your biggest brush. If you're painting a large area, you also want to use your biggest brush. Now, how you paint this is completely up to you. But what I think I'm going to do is paint the inside walls. So it is a little bit like a swimming pool right now, if you can picture that. Because it's a slab, but then it has walls that are built up. And I'm just kind of putting it into place. Now, if in your regular classroom, if you have an assistant, maybe you have a parent helper one day with this lesson, you might have them do blow drying if you're using underglaze, because it does dry pretty quick, but if you have a blow dryer or a heat gun, that'll make this go even quicker, which is kind of nice. Especially if you're working with a big class and you're just trying to kind of get everyone to the next step, that'll help you get there. Even with underglaze, I like to put like 4 coats. So the 4 coats are not an exact thing. And I'm just making sure I've painted my walls on the inside. It looks like I have, but I have a different plan for the outside. So however you do this is up to you. But I do want to show you a little bit of sgraffito. So sgraffito is the Italian art form that's done with pottery, and it just simply means to scratch. So I'm going to show you that in a moment. Now I have this mat underneath, and it's perfect because it's going to help me so that I can paint, and be sloppy, but without my project being sloppy. So, a little bit of paint, or glaze I should say, is getting onto the mat. That's okay, that's why it's there. If you have a drippy drip, don't worry about it. In fact, I always say if you mess it up, dress it up, so just make it part of your project if that happens to you, no sweat. I'm not sure if you could see on the screen, but the blue is actually drying as I'm doing this, which is pretty neat. And I know I'm applying this pretty thick. So this will really be on day number 2. So if you're doing underglazes, my teacher friends, you're just going to let these projects dry out. You're simply going to let them dry out. You're not going to fire them. Okay? And so if you have a week in between your classes, these will probably be just about bone dry, or, somewhere right around there for your students the next time that they have you, which will be great. And I'm just kind of quickly going around and adding a little bit more here. Again, how you design this is completely up to you. So let it be original, let it be unique, and let it be yours. That's what I say to my students. I'm saying it to you. Yeah, a heating gun would definitely kind of solve the issue of things being a little bit wet. But if you look close, you'll see it is drying. And what I'm going to do to help this dry, just for the sake of the video, is clean my brush, dry my brush. And I'm going to move some of this around. So for my students, actually, I'm just going to blend that in. Yeah, that works. See, I messed it up and I dressed it up. So I call the wet spots to my students, I call them goofy goobers, which is from SpongeBob. It's a SpongeBob reference. A lot of my students know it. And they laugh, and sometimes they even sing the song. So wet spots in my class, I call them goofy goobers. So I tell my students, get rid of your goofy goobers. And the next thing I know, my whole class is singing, and that's okay. Art should be fun, right? After all. All right. And it's looking better and better. Is it perfect? No, that's okay. All right, so this is a part where I can add a few more details, and I'm going to show you some fun little tips. I have a few colors left. Now with the back of my skewer, I can dip in the color. I'll just show you. Now you don't want to go hard here because you'll end up indenting the clay. And if your project was air dry before, the glaze is going to probably bring it back to a leather hard state. It just will have to dry again. It might be a little bit fragile. So you'll just want to be really careful with it. You probably won't get cracks. I've done this project a lot of times, and I've worked on totally bone dry clay, and I have people sometimes argue with me that, you know, oh, that's gonna crack your clay, but honestly, I think it just has more to do with the love and care and attention that you put in when you're doing this step, and you'll probably be able to avoid cracks. So just don't press hard. So I changed to yellow. Probably can't tell on the screen. I know that there's a glare, I'm sorry. I'll show you how to make the face in a minute and a few more details, and then we are done in a minute. And what I think I'm gonna do is just put a few more dots around my little llama. I can also use some of the pink from earlier. And you can just get really into your dots. Okay, so I put some pink dots. And again, how you do this, completely up to you. So maybe you're gonna put a few more dots around. It's all about these dots. And I'm gonna just work on the face for 1 second. Okay, so my face, I am gonna make it yellow. Okay, and I'm thinking a little bit about the eyes. For my little deer llama friend. Okay, so now I know some areas have kind of moved around and it's not as neat as it was. That's okay though. But what I'm gonna do now is my little scratch technique. So again, this is called sgraffito. And it's gonna work really nice. It's gonna look great. And what's going to happen is it's going to show the red clay that's underneath. And you can put as much scratching as you want into your picture. I'm gonna work on the nose really quick. And I think I'm even gonna make some little eyes. 1, 2. There he is. He looks a little surprised, but pretty much getting to the end here. And of course you can also use the back of your tool to just make some little designs and things like that. It looks really cool after you've done the underglaze step. So we learned about a lot of things today. We learned about scoring and slipping. We learned about slab. We learned sgraffito. So I hope that I've inspired you art teachers to do some slab lessons. Now, of course, you could do the same concept with a lot of different type of slab projects. The sky's the limit. This is just one I thought of that I wanted to share that I thought would be cute. I have an art show coming up for my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, so I'm not sure what grade I'm going to do this with yet. We'll see. I'm probably going to do it over 3 classes. So I think what I'm going to do is build it on the first class, do underglaze the second class before I've done a bisque fire, and then I'm going to bisque fire these. And then what I think I'll do is on my own put a clear glaze on top and then fire for the second run. So actually it's really going to be 2 classes for my students, but it's still 2 firings. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, and I'll see you next time.